General Amara Okonkwo stood in the ashes of Lagos and felt something break inside her chest. It was not her heart. Her heart had stopped feeling anything 3 days ago, when the sky turned white and the world she knew ended. What broke now was something deeper. It was the part of her that still believed in mercy. The ruins stretched for kilometers in every direction. Buildings that once touched the clouds were now nothing but twisted metal and broken concrete. The streets where she had played as a child were gone. The market where her grandmother sold spices was a crater. The school where her nieces learned to read was dust. 17 million people had lived in this city. Now they were ghosts. She walked through the destruction alone. Her boots crunched on glass and bone. The smell of smoke and death was everywhere. Above her, the sky was gray with ash that would not settle for months. This was what remained of her home. 3 days ago, the dominion of Keth had come to Earth. They came without warning. They came without reason. They came because they could. The Dominion was an empire that stretched across 3,000 star systems. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their ships were mountains of metal. Their weapons could crack planets. Their armies numbered in the trillions. And humans were nothing to them, less than nothing. Humans were insects that had crawled out of their little blue rock and dared to reach for the stars. Lord Vexen Keth Surl was the regional governor who ordered the attack. Amara had studied his face on every screen for 3 days now. He had the look of a man who had never been told no. His species, the Keth, were tall and gray-skinned, with eyes like black stones. They had built their empire on the simple belief that strength was the only truth in the universe. Vexen had not even bothered to declare war. He had simply sent a message to his fleet commanders: teach the humans their place. The fleet arrived at Earth on a Tuesday morning. Amara remembered the exact moment because she had been drinking coffee in her office at the United Defense Force headquarters in Geneva. The alarm started screaming. The screens lit up with a sight that stopped her heart. 47 Dominion warships. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. They moved through Earth's solar system like sharks swimming through a pond full of goldfish. Earth's defense fleet tried to stop them. Humanity had 12 ships capable of real combat. 12 against 47. The battle lasted 9 minutes. The human ships were brave. They were skilled. They were dead within the hour. Then the Dominion fleet entered orbit above Earth. They positioned themselves over 3 cities: Mumbai, São Paulo, and Lagos, the largest cities in 3 different continents. The message was clear. No one was safe. Nowhere was safe. The bombardment began at exactly noon, Geneva time. The Dominion used plasma weapons that burned hotter than the sun. They fired for 40 minutes, then they stopped. Then they left. 17 million people died in those 40 minutes. 3 great cities became 3 great graves. The Dominion left behind only a single message beacon floating in Earth's orbit. The message was simple: know your place, expansion ends, tribute begins. That was 3 days ago. Now Amara walked through the ruins of Lagos and counted the dead. She found her grandmother's house by memory alone. Nothing remained but a blackened foundation and a twisted metal frame. She stood there for a long time. Her grandmother had survived. She had been visiting family in the countryside when the attack came. Her nieces had survived too, but their home was gone. Their neighbors were gone. Everyone they had known for generations was gone. Amara felt the breaking thing inside her chest settle into a new shape. It was hard and cold and sharp. It was anger, but not the wild anger of a wounded animal. This was something else. This was the anger of a soldier who had just been given a mission. She turned and walked back toward the rescue camp at the edge of the city. Emergency teams from every nation on Earth were here now. The whole world had united in grief, but grief would not bring back the dead. Grief would not stop the Dominion from doing this again. At the camp, she found her aide waiting with a secure communication device. The President of the United Nations wanted to speak with her. So did 17 other world leaders. The whole planet was screaming for answers. What do we do? How do we respond? Can we fight back? Amara did not answer their calls. Not yet. She needed to think first. She walked to a quiet corner of the camp and sat on a piece of rubble that had once been someone's home. She watched the rescue workers dig through the ruins. She watched the survivors wander in shock. She watched the children cry for parents who would never answer. And she thought about the Dominion. She had studied them for years. Every officer in the United Defense Force studied potential threats. The Dominion was the biggest threat in known space. They controlled more territory than any other empire. They had more ships, more soldiers, more resources than anyone else. But Amara had noticed something in her studies, something that gave her hope. The Dominion was old, very old. They had been using the same weapons for 10,000 years, the same tactics, the same ships. They had never needed to change because they had never faced a real challenge. Every species they conquered had been primitive compared to them. Every war they fought was a slaughter, not a contest. They had grown comfortable, lazy, certain of their own superiority. Humanity was different. Humanity was young. Just 300 years ago, humans had been killing each other with swords and arrows. 200 years ago, they discovered electricity. 100 years ago, they split the atom. 50 years ago, they reached the stars. No other species in the galaxy had evolved so fast. No other species had the capacity to change so quickly. The Dominion saw this as a sign of instability, of danger, of a species that needed to be contained. They were right to be afraid. They just did not understand why. Amara stood up and dusted off her uniform. She picked up the communication device and called the president. "General Okonkwo," the president said. His voice was tired and broken. "Please tell me you have something, anything." "I have a plan," Amara said, "but you are not going to like it. At this point, I will take anything." "We cannot fight them," Amara said. "Not now, not with what we have. If we try, they will come back and finish what they started. They will burn every city on Earth until there is nothing left." The president was silent for a long moment. "Then what do you suggest?" "We pretend to submit. We send them their tribute. We pull back our ships. We make them think they have won. And then we prepare. We study their technology. We build new weapons. We train new soldiers. We make alliances with other species they have oppressed. And when we are ready, when we are strong enough, we take everything from them." "How long?" "A year, maybe 2. I know that sounds like a long time. I know there are people who want revenge right now, but if we strike before we are ready, we will lose. And if we lose, humanity ends." The president was quiet again. Amara could hear him breathing. She knew what he was thinking. She knew how hard it was to choose patience when anger was burning in your chest. "The other leaders will not like this," he finally said. "They do not have to like it. They just have to do it." "And what about you, General? You lost your home today, your city, your people. Can you be patient?" Amara looked out at the ruins of Lagos. She thought of her grandmother, her nieces, the 17 million dead. "I will be whatever humanity needs me to be," she said. "Right now, that means being patient. But I promise you this, Mr. President. When the time comes, I will personally deliver our response to the Dominion, and they will learn that striking Earth first was the last mistake they ever made." She ended the call and stood there in the ashes of her childhood. The sun was setting behind the smoke clouds. Somewhere in the distance, a child was crying. The Dominion thought they had broken humanity. They thought a single strike would be enough to make humans kneel forever. They did not understand what they had done. They had not broken humanity. They had united it. They had given every person on Earth a common enemy and a common cause. They had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. Amara looked up at the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, Lord Vexen was celebrating his easy victory. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was laughing at the weak little humans. They would not be laughing for long. "You struck first," Amara whispered to the stars. "Now we are coming for you." 6 months had passed since the burning of Earth's cities. The Dominion had not heard a single word from humanity in all that time. Lord Vexen Keth Surul sat in his palace on the colony world of Keth Vorel and smiled at the silence. It was the smile of a teacher who had disciplined a troublesome student. The humans had learned their lesson. They had withdrawn their ships from all contested territories. They had sent their first tribute shipment right on schedule. They had submitted just as every other species eventually submitted. His advisors brought him reports each week. Human activity had decreased across all sectors. Their communication networks were quiet. Their military bases showed minimal movement. The humans were behaving exactly as a conquered species should behave. They are broken, his chief advisor said during one meeting. Their spirit died with their cities. Vexen nodded in satisfaction. As I predicted, they were never a real threat, just a nuisance that needed correction. He turned his attention to other matters. The Dominion had many territories to manage, many species to control. The humans were already fading from his mind, becoming just another footnote in the Empire's long history of putting primitive species in their place. This was his first mistake. On Earth, things were very different from what the Dominion believed. The silence was not the quiet of defeat. It was the quiet of a world holding its breath, preparing, changing. General Amara Okonkwo stood in a massive underground facility that had not existed 6 months ago. Around her, thousands of scientists and engineers worked at stations filled with alien technology. This was Project Prometheus. This was humanity's answer to the Dominion. The facility stretched for kilometers beneath the mountains of Switzerland. It had been built in record time, using techniques no human had known before the attack. That was the secret of humanity. When pushed to the edge, they did not just survive, they evolved. Status report, Amara said to her lead scientist, a woman named Dr. Chen. Dr. Chen pulled up holographic displays showing their progress. We have fully decoded the Dominion shield technology. Our version is actually more efficient than theirs. It adapts to incoming fire and redistributes energy in real time. Weapons? We have developed 3 new systems they have never seen. Quantum disruption missiles that bypass shields entirely. Adaptive plasma cannons that learn from each shot and adjust for enemy defenses. And this. She pointed to a display showing a small device. We call it the Prometheus Core. It is a power source that generates 10 times more energy than anything the Dominion uses. Amara studied the displays. How is this possible? They have had 10,000 years to develop their technology. We have had 6 months. Dr. Chen smiled. That is exactly the problem with the Dominion. They stopped innovating 10,000 years ago. Their technology works, so they never felt the need to improve it. They have been using the same weapons, the same shields, the same engines for millennia. And us? We went from the steam engine to nuclear power in 150 years. From the first airplane to landing on our moon in 66 years. From simple computers to artificial intelligence in less than a century. We do not evolve slowly like other species. We explode forward. Amara nodded. This was what she had been counting on. The Dominion saw humanity's rapid development as a sign of instability. They were right, but they did not understand what that instability could become when given direction. She walked through the facility, observing the work at each station. Former rivals now worked side by side. American engineers collaborated with Chinese scientists. Russian military strategists shared ideas with Indian programmers. The attack on Earth had erased every division. There was only one team now, one species, one purpose. In another section of the facility, she found Admiral Takeshi Yamamoto, the commander of what remained of Earth's fleet. He was overseeing the construction of new ships built with the stolen and improved Dominion technology. How many do we have? Amar asked. 23 complete, Yamamoto said. Another 40 in various stages of construction. By the end of the year, we will have 100 ships ready for combat. 100 against thousands. Quality against quantity, Yamamoto said. Our ships are faster, more maneuverable, and carry weapons they cannot defend against. One of ours is worth 10 of theirs. Maybe more. Amara accepted this. She had to. There was no way to match the Dominion in numbers. They would have to win through innovation, through tactics, through the simple fact that humans fought differently than any species the Dominion had ever faced. She left the facility and traveled to another secret location. This one was in South America, hidden in the jungle. Here she met with representatives from other species who had been oppressed by the Dominion. The Vreth were insect-like beings whose homeworld had been strip-mined for resources. The Kalani were telepaths who had been enslaved as interrogators. The Morn were giants who had been forced to work in Dominion factories for generations. There were dozens of others, each with their own story of suffering under Dominion rule. They had come to Earth in secret, risking everything to meet with the humans. Word had spread through the underground networks of the galaxy. The humans were planning something. The humans were not broken. Amara addressed them in a simple meeting room with no ceremony. "I am not asking you to fight with us," she said. "Not yet. The risk is too great. If the Dominion discovers what we are planning, they will destroy you along with us." "Then why have you called us here?" the Vreth representative asked. "Information. I need to know everything about the Dominion, their supply lines, their communication networks, their weaknesses. You have lived under their rule for centuries. You know things we cannot learn from captured technology." The representatives looked at each other. There was fear in their eyes, but there was also something else. Hope. "If we help you," the Kalani said, "and you fail, the Dominion will punish us all." "Yes," Amara said simply, "they will. And if you succeed?" "If we succeed, the Dominion will no longer exist to punish anyone." The room was silent for a long moment. Then the Morn representative stood. He was 3 meters tall with skin like stone and eyes that had seen centuries of slavery. "My people have waited 400 years for someone to stand against the Dominion," he said. "We had given up hope. We accepted that we would die as slaves, just as our parents died, and their parents before them." He placed his massive hand on the table. "You want information? I will give you everything. Routes, schedules, codes, secrets. I will give you the location of every Dominion weakness my people have discovered in 400 years of forced service." One by one, the other representatives stood. Each offered what they had: intelligence networks, security codes, guard rotations. The inner workings of an empire that had never imagined its slaves might one day help its enemies. Amara felt the weight of their trust. These species were risking extinction to help humanity. She could not fail them. "When the time comes," she promised, "humanity will not forget who stood with us in the darkness." The months continued to pass. Earth remained silent to the outside galaxy. Tribute shipments arrived on schedule. Human ships stayed within their borders. To the Dominion, it looked like perfect submission. But beneath the surface, humanity was transforming. Factories that once made consumer goods now produced weapons. Universities that once studied theory now solved practical problems of war. Children who had grown up in peace were training to become soldiers. Every person on Earth understood what was coming. Every person had lost someone in the attack. 17 million dead meant 17 million reasons to fight. The anger had not faded. It had focused. It had become something useful. 1 year after the attack, Amara stood on the bridge of Earth's new flagship, the Phoenix. It was beautiful and deadly, a perfect expression of human engineering. Around her, 99 other ships waited in the darkness of deep space, hidden from Dominion sensors. Admiral Yamamoto stood beside her. "All ships report ready, General." Amara looked at the star map showing Dominion territory. Thousands of systems, millions of ships, trillions of soldiers, and humanity was going to take it all. "The Dominion believes we are broken," she said. "They believe we have accepted our place in their empire. They are about to learn how wrong they are." She opened a channel to all ships. "This is General Okonkwo. 1 year ago, the Dominion attacked Earth without warning. They killed 17 million of our people to teach us humility. They expected us to kneel." She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. They were young and old, from every nation on Earth. They were the best humanity had to offer. "We did not kneel. We prepared. And now we are ready to show the galaxy what happens when you strike humanity first." She pointed at the star map. "Our first target is their supply depot at Kethravar. It feeds half their eastern fleet. We destroy it, and we announce our return to the universe." The fleet moved forward as one, silent, deadly, unstoppable. The Dominion's peace was about to end. The Dominion supply depot at Kethravar was the size of a small moon. It floated in the darkness between stars, feeding fuel and weapons to hundreds of warships. For 1,000 years, it had operated without interruption. For 1,000 years, no enemy had dared to approach it. Commander Keth Saral was in charge of the depot's defense. It was a boring assignment. Nothing ever happened at Kethravar. He spent most of his time filing reports and counting inventory. The 20 patrol ships under his command had never fired their weapons at anything but practice targets. On the morning of the attack, Keth Saral was eating breakfast in his quarters when the alarms began to scream. "What is happening?" he demanded, rushing to the command center. His officers were staring at their screens with expressions of confusion. "Unknown contacts, Commander. 100 vessels. They appeared from nowhere." "From nowhere? That is impossible. Our sensors cover light years of space. They must have some kind of stealth technology we have never seen." The officer's voice was shaking. "Commander, they are already within weapons range." Keth Saral looked at the tactical display. 100 red dots surrounded his depot like wolves circling a wounded animal. His 20 patrol ships were already moving to intercept, but he knew with cold certainty that it would not be enough. "Who are they?" he asked. Before anyone could answer, a message appeared on his screen. A human woman in a military uniform stared at him with eyes that held no mercy. "This is General Amara Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Force," she said. "1 year ago, your empire attacked my world and killed 17 million of my people. You expected us to submit. You were wrong." Keth Saral felt his blood go cold. The humans? That was impossible. The humans were broken. The humans were paying tribute. The humans did not have ships capable of reaching this far into Dominion space. "Your patrol ships have 60 seconds to withdraw," the human general continued. "If they fire on us, they will be destroyed. If they retreat, they will be spared. We are not here for them. We are here for your supplies." Keth Saral looked at his tactical display again. His 20 ships against their 100. Even if the human ships were poorly armed, the numbers were hopeless. "All ships withdraw," he ordered. His officers stared at him in shock. "Do it now! We cannot win this fight." His patrol ships began to pull back. The human fleet did not pursue them. Instead, the 100 vessels began their attack on the depot itself. What happened next would be talked about throughout the Dominion for generations. The human weapons were unlike anything Keth Saral had ever seen. Their missiles passed through shields as if they did not exist. Their plasma cannons seemed to learn from each shot, adjusting their frequency to bypass armor. The depot's defenses, which had been designed to stop conventional attacks, were useless. In 20 minutes, the largest supply depot in the Eastern Territories was burning wreckage. General Okonkwo appeared on Keth Saral's screen one final time. "Deliver a message to your superiors," she said. "Tell them the tribute payments are over. Tell them Earth is coming. And tell them that every world they have oppressed is watching." The human fleet vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving behind only destruction and a message beacon. The beacon contained footage of the attack. It was broadcasting on all frequencies. Every ship in the sector would receive it within hours. Every colony would know within days. The humans were back, and they were angry. Lord Vexen Keth Saral received the news 3 days later. He watched the footage of his burning depot with a face that showed no emotion. Inside, his mind was racing. This was not possible. The humans had nothing. They were primitive. They had surrendered. How could they have developed such weapons in a single year? "Find them," he ordered his admirals. "Send the Third Fleet. Find their ships and destroy them. Leave nothing behind." The Third Fleet was 500 warships under the command of Admiral Keth Vor, one of the Dominion's most experienced officers. They swept through human space, hunting for the enemy fleet. They found nothing. The human ships had vanished. For 2 months, Admiral Keith Vor chased ghosts. His sensors would detect human vessels at the edge of a system, but by the time his ships arrived, the humans were gone. Meanwhile, reports came in from across Dominion territory. Human ships attacking fuel convoys, human ships destroying communication relays, human ships raiding outposts and freeing prisoners. The humans never fought directly. They struck and vanished. They appeared and disappeared. They were everywhere and nowhere. Admiral Keth Vor was a proud officer who had won many battles. But he had never faced an enemy like this. The humans did not fight the way wars were supposed to be fought. They did not gather their forces and meet him in open battle. They scattered like leaves in the wind, and each leaf carried a weapon. Finally, his opportunity came. Intelligence reported that the main human fleet was gathering in an empty system at the edge of Dominion space. Admiral Keth Vor assembled his full strength and jumped to intercept. He found them. 100 human ships, just as the report said. They were waiting for him. All ships, the admiral commanded. Attack formation. We end this today. 500 Dominion warships surged forward. Their weapons began to fire. The space between the fleets filled with plasma and missiles. But something was wrong. The Dominion weapons were hitting the human shields and doing nothing. The plasma dispersed harmlessly. The missiles exploded without effect. It was as if the human ships were protected by some kind of barrier that learned from every attack and adapted. Meanwhile, the human weapons were cutting through Dominion ships like they were made of paper. Admiral Kethvor watched in horror as his fleet began to die. Ship after ship exploded. Captains screamed for help on the communication channels. The tactical display turned red with destruction. The humans moved through his formation like dancers. Their ships were smaller and faster than his. They worked together with perfect coordination, covering each other, supporting each other, protecting each other. Every time he focused fire on one ship, 3 others would strike from a different angle. In 2 hours, the third fleet was gone. 300 ships destroyed, 200 in retreat. Admiral Kethvor was among the survivors, fleeing on a damaged vessel with half his crew dead. The humans let them go. General Okonkwo watched the retreating Dominion ships and felt no joy. This was not a celebration. This was justice. But justice did not bring back the dead. She opened a channel to the Dominion capital. The message would be received throughout the empire. "This is General Amara Okonkwo of Earth," she said. Her face appeared on screens in 1,000 systems. "1 year ago, you struck our world without warning. You killed 17 million people to teach us our place. You wanted us to be afraid." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We are not afraid, we are angry. And now we are coming for you." She held up a data pad showing the destruction of the Third Fleet. "Your weapons cannot hurt us. Your shields cannot stop us. Your numbers do not matter. We have spent the last year studying your empire, and we have found it weak, stagnant, rotten at the core." Her eyes hardened. "You built your empire on the belief that the strong deserve to rule the weak. You were wrong. True strength is not about domination. It is about protection. It is about building something worth defending. We are giving you one chance. Release the species you have enslaved. Surrender the leaders who ordered the attack on Earth. Accept that your empire is over. Do this, and humanity will show you the mercy you never showed us." She leaned forward. "Refuse, and we will tear down everything you have built. We will free every world you have conquered. We will not stop until the Dominion exists only in history books." The transmission ended. Throughout the Dominion, billions of beings watched in stunned silence. The slaves looked at each other with new hope in their eyes. The soldiers looked at each other with new fear. And in the imperial palace, the emperor himself watched with cold fury. "Send for my war council," the emperor commanded. "We are going to exterminate these humans once and for all." His advisors rushed to obey. But in the corridors of the palace, whispers were already spreading. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated a Dominion fleet. They had survived. And across the empire, oppressed species were beginning to ask a dangerous question. If the humans could resist, why could they not do the same? The war was just beginning. 2 years had passed since the attack on Earth. The galaxy was on fire. The human fleet had carved a path through Dominion territory like a blade through flesh. Every week brought news of another victory, another supply line cut, another military base destroyed, another world liberated. But General Amara Okonkwo knew that the war was far from over. The Dominion was vast. For every fleet they destroyed, the Emperor could build 2 more. For every territory they freed, 100 remained in chains. They were winning battles, but they needed to win something bigger. They needed to break the Empire's spirit. That was why she had brought the fleet to Kethvoril. The planet hung in space before her, a massive world covered in factories and shipyards. This was where the Dominion built most of its warships. This was the heart of their military power. Destroying it would set back their war effort by decades. But the Dominion knew its value. 500 warships defended Kethvoril. Every approach was mined. Every orbital platform was armed. The Emperor had stripped ships from across the Empire to protect this one world. Amara had 50 ships. General, Admiral Yamamoto said quietly, our scouts confirmed the enemy numbers. 500 to our 50. Even with our technological advantage, these odds are not favorable. I know. Amara studied the tactical display, looking for weaknesses. But we are not going to win this war by playing it safe. If we destroy Keth Vorel, the Dominion loses its ability to replace losses. The war ends in years instead of decades. And if we lose here, then Earth falls. Every species that allied with us is exterminated, and the Dominion continues for another 10,000 years. Yamamoto nodded slowly. Then we cannot lose. No, Amara agreed. We cannot. She opened a channel to all ships. This is General Okonkwo. The battle ahead will be the hardest we have ever fought. The enemy has more ships, more guns, more missiles. By every calculation, we should lose. She paused, letting her words sink in. But calculations do not account for the human spirit. They do not account for people fighting for something more than conquest. Every person in this fleet has lost someone to the Dominion. Every person knows what we are fighting for. This is not about territory or resources. This is about freedom. For us. For our allies. For every species that has suffered under Dominion rule. She stood straighter. The enemy expects us to fight like they do. They expect us to form lines and exchange fire until one side breaks. They are wrong. We are not going to fight their war. We are going to fight ours. The fleet advanced. Captain Keth Noller was commanding one of the Dominion ships defending the shipyard. He had served in the Imperial Navy for 40 years. He had fought in 17 campaigns. He had never seen anything like the humans. They came at his formation like a swarm of insects. Not in neat lines, but in a chaotic mass that seemed to have no pattern. His targeting computers could not predict their movements. His gunners could not track their ships. They were everywhere at once. Focus fire on the lead ship, he ordered. His weapons locked onto a human vessel and unleashed a full barrage. The human ship dodged and weaved, its shields flashing as they absorbed what little damage connected. But it did not matter because the ship was not the threat. While Keth Nolar focused on one target, 3 other human ships had slipped behind his formation. They opened fire on his engines. His ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. Before he could respond, the attackers had vanished back into the chaos. This happened again and again across the battlefield. The Dominion ships were larger and more powerful, but they were slow. They were built for wars where enemies stood and fought. The humans never stood. They never stopped moving. They struck and retreated, attacked and vanished, always one step ahead. Captain Keth Noller watched his tactical display turn from a sea of green to a sea of red. They were losing. Somehow, despite everything, they were losing. General Okonkwo was on the bridge of the Phoenix, directing the battle like a conductor directing an orchestra. Her mind processed information faster than she had ever thought possible. Ship positions, enemy movements, weaknesses to exploit, opportunities to seize. But she was also watching something else. She was watching her people die. Human ships were being destroyed too. For every 10 Dominion vessels they killed, they lost one of their own. The math was in their favor, but each lost ship was 100 humans who would never go home, 100 families who would never be whole again. She pushed the grief aside. She could mourn later. Right now, she needed to win. Admiral, status of the shipyards? Still heavily defended. We have destroyed most of their fleet, but the orbital platforms remain operational. We cannot approach without taking heavy casualties. Amara studied the display. The platforms were the problem. They were massive installations bristling with weapons. Taking them down with conventional attacks would cost too many ships. But there was another way. Signal the Prometheus, she ordered. Tell Captain Rodriguez to begin the special operation. The Prometheus was a small ship, barely larger than a shuttle, but it carried something the Dominion had never seen before. Something human scientists had been developing in secret for 2 years. Captain Rodriguez guided her tiny vessel through the chaos of battle, using the debris and explosions as cover. The Dominion did not notice her. Why would they? She was too small to be a threat. She reached the first orbital platform and attached a small device to its hull. Then she moved to the second, then the third, then the fourth. When she had planted devices on all 12 platforms, she retreated to a safe distance and activated them. The devices were quantum disruptors. They did not destroy the platforms. They did something worse. They scrambled every electronic system simultaneously. Shields failed. Weapons went offline. Life support began to malfunction. In seconds, the 12 orbital platforms went from deadly fortresses to helpless targets. All ships, Amara commanded, destroy the platforms, then target the shipyards. The human fleet descended on the defenseless installations like wolves on wounded prey. One by one, the platforms exploded. The shipyards burned. Decades of Dominion military production became scattered debris. The remaining Dominion ships tried to flee. Most did not make it. When it was over, General Okonkwo stood on the bridge of her ship and looked at the destruction. Keth Voral still existed, but its military value was gone. The factories that had built warships for 1,000 years were molten slag. The shipyards that had launched fleets to conquer worlds were twisted wreckage. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. But victory had a cost. Amara looked at the casualty reports and felt the weight of command pressing down on her. 15 ships destroyed, 1,500 humans dead. Each one had a name. Each one had a family. Each one had trusted her to bring them home. She could not save them all. She could only make sure their sacrifice meant something. A communication signal interrupted her thoughts. It was coming from the Dominion capital. From the Imperial Palace itself. General Okonkwo. The face on her screen was ancient and cruel. Golden robes, black eyes, a crown of twisted metal. This was the Emperor himself. You have proven to be more troublesome than I expected. And you have proven to be weaker than I feared, Amara replied. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Bold words for someone so far from home. You have won battles. I have thousands of worlds, millions of ships, trillions of soldiers. This war can only end one way. I agree, Amara said. It will end with me standing in your throne room. For a moment the Emperor was silent. Then he laughed. It was a cold sound, like wind through dead branches. You amuse me, human. Very well. Come to my throne room if you can. My guards will be waiting. My fleets will be waiting. The full might of the Dominion will be waiting. Good, Amara said. I would hate for our final victory to be too easy. She ended the transmission. Admiral Yamamoto looked at her with concern. General, was it wise to antagonize him? The Emperor rules through fear, Amara said. His subjects obey because they believe he is invincible. Every time we prove him wrong, his empire weakens. Every time we make him look foolish, his subjects wonder if they should still be afraid. She turned to face her crew. This war is not just about weapons and ships. It is about ideas. The Dominion believes the strong should rule the weak. We believe in something different. We believe that true strength comes from protecting others, not crushing them. She looked out at the burning remains of the shipyards. Today, we showed the galaxy that the Dominion can be defeated. Tomorrow, we show them that it should be. The fleet began to regroup, gathering strength for the final push toward the heart of the Empire. Somewhere ahead, the Emperor waited on his throne, surrounded by his guards and his fleets and his trillions of soldiers. Amara was not afraid. She had started this war with nothing but rage and determination. Now she had an army of humans and allies who believed in something worth fighting for. The Dominion was going to fall, and she was going to be there to watch it happen. 3 years after the burning of Earth's cities, General Amara Okonkwo stood at the edge of the Dominion's heart. The planet Keth Navar hung before her fleet, a world of ancient palaces and towering monuments. This was where the Empire had been born 10,000 years ago. This was where it would die. The final battle had not been much of a battle at all. Half the Dominion's remaining fleets had defected or fled. Species that had been enslaved for centuries had risen up across the Empire. The Vreth had sabotaged fuel supplies. The Kalani had assassinated military commanders. The Morn had seized control of entire factory worlds. The Dominion was collapsing from within. Now only the Imperial Guard remained loyal. 300 ships surrounded Keth Navar, crewed by fanatics who would rather die than see their empire fall. They were the best the Dominion had, the most skilled, the most devoted. They were also outnumbered. Amara had brought 200 human ships, but she also had 300 vessels from allied species who had joined the fight. Vreth swarm ships, Kalani mine vessels, Morn battle barges. For the first time in history, the oppressed peoples of the galaxy were fighting together against their oppressors. Admiral Yamamoto reported, "The Imperial Guard is holding position. They are not attacking." Amara nodded. "They know they cannot win. They are hoping we will offer terms." "Will we?" Amara considered the question. She could destroy the Guard and end this quickly. But there had been enough death. If the Guard surrendered, thousands of lives would be saved. Human lives, allied lives, even Dominion lives. "Open a channel to the Guard commander," she ordered. The face that appeared on her screen was tired and gray. Admiral Keth Varn was the last of the old Guard. He had served the Empire for 200 years. He had watched it grow and prosper. Now he was watching it die. "General Okonkwo," he said, "I wondered when you would call. Admiral Keth Varn, your fleet is surrounded. Your Emperor has lost. You can surrender now and save your people, or you can fight and die for nothing." The old Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "I have served the Dominion my entire life. I believed in what we built. Order, stability, a galaxy united under one rule." "You built slavery," Amara said. "You built oppression. You built an empire on the suffering of billions." "Perhaps." Kethvarn closed his eyes. "But it was my empire, my home, my purpose." "Your purpose can change. Your people can change. The Dominion way is over, but that does not mean your species must end. There is a place for you in what comes next, if you choose it." The Admiral opened his eyes. There was something new in them. Not hope exactly, but perhaps the absence of despair. "My ships will stand down," he said, "but I will not live to see what comes next. I am too old to change, too guilty to be forgiven." "That is not your choice to make," Amara said. "You will surrender yourself for trial. What happens after is not up to you or me. It is up to justice." Kethvarn nodded slowly. "You are not what I expected, human. When your species first reached the stars, we dismissed you as primitives, animals who had learned to build rockets. We never imagined you could become this." "Neither did we," Amara admitted. "Sometimes strength is discovered, not planned." The Imperial Guard powered down their weapons and opened their hangars. One by one, shuttles began carrying Dominion soldiers to surrender. The last defenders of the Empire were giving up without a fight. Amara felt no triumph, only exhaustion, and a new weight on her shoulders. 1 hour later, her shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Keth Navar. The planet's surface was covered in structures that had stood for millennia. Palaces of white stone, monuments to forgotten victories, gardens that had been tended by slaves for 10,000 years. At the center of everything stood the Imperial Palace. It was a mountain of crystal and gold, beautiful and terrible. Inside, the Emperor waited. Amara walked through the palace gates with only a small escort. Dominion guards watched her pass but did not move to stop her. Their weapons remained holstered. Their eyes remained empty. The fight had gone out of them. She climbed the 1,000 steps to the throne room. Each step was carved from a different world stone. Each step represented a planet conquered and broken. She climbed them all without pausing. The throne room doors opened before her. The Emperor sat on a throne of black metal at the far end of a vast chamber. He was ancient beyond measure, his gray skin paper-thin over bones like iron. His eyes were the only part of him that still seemed alive. They burned with hatred as Amara approached. "So," he said, "the animal has come to claim its prize." Amara stopped 10 meters from the throne. Her guards spread out behind her, but she did not need them. The Emperor was alone. His guards had abandoned him. His advisors had fled. He was the last of the Dominion's masters. "You killed 17 million of my people," Amara said. "You burned my cities. You laughed at our grief and called it justice." "It was justice," the Emperor hissed. "You were nothing, a footnote in the history of the galaxy. I was doing you a kindness by showing you your place before you embarrassed yourselves further." Amara studied the creature before her. In her dreams, she had imagined this moment 1,000 times. She had imagined what she would say, what she would do. how she would make him pay for every life his empire had taken. But standing here now, she felt only sadness. "You really believe that," she said. "You really believe that your empire was a gift to the galaxy, that the billions you enslaved should have been grateful for their chains. The strong rule, the weak serve. This is the natural order. This is how the universe works." "No," Amara said. "That is how your empire worked, and that is why it failed." She stepped closer to the throne. The emperor flinched back, and in that moment, she saw what he truly was. Not a god, not a demon, just a frightened old man who had spent his whole life believing in a lie. "You thought strength was about domination," she said, "about crushing anything weaker than yourself. But true strength is about protection. It is about lifting others up, not pushing them down. It is about building something worth defending." She turned to look at the throne room. The murals on the wall showed 10,000 years of conquest. Worlds burning, species kneeling, emperors triumphant. "You built an empire on fear," she continued. "But fear is a weak foundation. The moment something stronger appeared, your subjects turned against you. Not because we forced them, but because they were waiting, hoping, dreaming of the day someone would stand up to you." She faced the emperor again. "That is why you lost. Not because of our weapons or our tactics. You lost because your own slaves wanted you to lose." The emperor's hands gripped the arms of his throne. "Then finish it. Kill me. Take your revenge." Amara shook her head. "No." The word hung in the air. The emperor stared at her in confusion. "No? If I kill you, I become you. Another conqueror, another tyrant, another monster who thinks power gives the right to take life." She stepped back. "You will face trial for your crimes. A real trial with judges and evidence and a chance to defend yourself. Something you never gave the species you conquered. That is not justice. That is weakness. Perhaps," Amara smiled, but there was no warmth in it, "or perhaps it is the kind of strength you never understood. The strength to show mercy to someone who showed none to you." She gestured to her guards. They moved forward to take the emperor into custody. He did not resist. There was nothing left in him to resist with. As they led him away, Amara called out one last time. "You struck Earth first," she said. "You came for us, and now we are here, but not to destroy, to rebuild, to create something better than what you built." The emperor did not respond. The doors closed behind him, and he was gone. Amara stood alone in the throne room of the fallen empire. Outside, she knew the galaxy was celebrating. Slaves were walking free for the first time in generations. Warships were being decommissioned. A new age was beginning. She walked to the throne and looked at it for a long moment. It was just a chair, an ugly thing built from the metal of conquered ships. It held no power except what people gave it. She did not sit in it. Instead, she walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 17 million ghosts waited for justice. She hoped she had given them something close to it. 5 years later, Ambassador Amara Okonkwo addressed the first full assembly of the Galactic Coalition. The chamber was filled with representatives from 100 species. Vreth and Kalani sat beside Morn and Human. Former enemies worked together on councils and committees. The galaxy was not peaceful, not yet, but it was healing. "We gather today to remember," Amara said, "to remember what we lost, to remember what we fought for, and to remember what we chose not to become." She looked out at the assembled delegates. They watched her with respect, some with gratitude, others with the wariness of former enemies learning to trust. 5 years ago, humanity was attacked without warning. We lost 17 million people in a single day. We had every reason to respond with rage, to burn the galaxy until nothing remained of those who hurt us. She paused, letting the memory settle. We chose differently. We chose to fight, yes. We chose to destroy an empire that had caused suffering for 10,000 years. But when we won, we did not become the new masters. We did not enslave our enemies or crush those who had wronged us. She stood straighter. We chose to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of wound, to show mercy when we had every right to vengeance. That is what it means to be human. Not our weapons, not our technology, Not our capacity for war, our capacity for choice. The assembly was silent. Then slowly applause began. It spread through the chamber until everyone was standing. Former slaves and former masters, old enemies and new friends, all of them united by the choice humanity had made. Amara accepted their gratitude, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking of Lagos, of the ashes she had walked through 3 years ago, of the grandmother who had survived and the nieces who were now growing up in a galaxy free of the Dominion's shadow. She was thinking of the 17 million who had died so that this moment could exist. We were struck first, she said quietly. Words meant only for herself. We came for them. And when we had the power to become the monsters they were, we chose differently, she smiled. That is what it means to be human. Outside the chamber windows, the stars burned bright. 100 worlds, 1,000 species, a galaxy learning to live together. The Dominion was gone, but what humanity had built in its place would last forever.